Hey there and welcome to Chronically Overdressed. I'm Christine, also known as the Glambassador. I am a plus size vintage enthusiast, and here on my channel I make videos on vintage fashion, beauty, history, thrifting, and occasional travel and vintage lifestyle vlogs. So if that interests you, I hope that you will join our little community by subscribing, and if you want to be notified of when I post a video, just make sure that you hit the notification bell and you'll get an email every time I post. I'm so excited to be creating this wet set video series for you guys. A few years ago, I did post my wet set and the science behind why and how a wet set works. And while I stand by pretty much everything in that video, I've learned a few things over the years that I would love to share with you. And I thought it would be a really good idea to kind of break things out into more digestible pieces. That way you can come back to parts that you need to without having to sift through an entire hour-long video. This video is going to focus on my tips and tricks for getting and maintaining a spectacular wet set. I'll go over some scalp and hair suggestions to keep your hair luscious and healthy. And of course, I will give you the lowdown on the science on how and why a wet set works to give you the longest lasting curl for your gorgeous vintage hairstyles. In my subsequent videos, I will show you step by step how I do my wet set so you can follow along with me. And then we'll complete the series by doing the brush out from that set so you can see how it all comes together. So I want to start off with some tips for a healthy scalp. Strong and healthy hair begins at the scalp, so we really need to make sure that we are taking care of our scalp and keeping it nice and happy and healthy in order to have beautiful, luscious locks. So let's start with how we actually wash and condition our hair. The instructions on our shampoo of lather, rinse, repeat. It's not just a catchy phrase or a way for shampoo companies to get you to use more product. They're actual instructions. And if done correctly, you'll find that you're actually going to use a lot less product. Shampoo needs to be emulsified before application. So once you've completely saturated your hair and scalp, add a little bit of water to your hands and really kind of, lather it up in your hands before you apply it to your scalp. Shampoo is made for cleansing the scalp, not necessarily cleansing the hair shaft. This first go around, you may not find that there's a lot of lather going on the scalp, but it is working to break down the oils and the dirt and the debris on your scalp. So when you go in for your second application, same thing, lather it up on your hands and put it directly on the scalp. You should then find that it lathers up quite a bit, because at this point you've cleansed all of that off and you're now actually being able to cleanse your scalp. You want to make sure that you're keeping the shampoo just on the scalp, using the pads of your fingers, massaging that in, and once the water washes it down, that's going to be enough to clean off any dirt and debris on the actual hair shaft without drying it out too much. And now for your conditioner. So with your shampoo, you want to make sure that your hair is completely saturated before you apply your product. And with conditioner, you want the opposite. You want to squeeze out as much water as possible because you don't want to dilute your conditioner. And now conditioner is meant for the hair shaft. So you want to keep that, the hair that you can kind of pull back into a ponytail. So all of this right here, that's pretty much where you're going to be applying the conditioner. Try not to deposit too much conditioner up near the scalp. You really want it to concentrate on the bottom ends of your hair. Run it through with your fingers, or if you have a wide tooth comb or maybe a wet brush. But just be very careful because your hair is actually very, very fragile when it's wet. So you don't want to be pulling too much with a comb or a brush. You want to gently get it through and get the tangles out that way. Then just rinse it out. And then if you use a leave-in conditioner, again, make sure that your hair squeeze out as much water as possible so you're not diluting the conditioner, and then just apply your leave-in conditioner just on the ends of your hair. You want to rinse your conditioner out with cool or cold water. And cool and cold water helps to close up the cuticles. It creates a smoother shaft and makes your hair a little bit more shiny. Cold water closes the pores on the scalp, which makes it less vulnerable to oil and dirt. As cold water helps to close the cuticles, it really helps to control breakage, flyaways, and frizz, which is fantastic for us curly girls. Hard water can create a buildup on the hair, making it really difficult for styling. Hard water contains minerals that create a barrier that make it very difficult for moisture to penetrate into the hair. Hair washed in hard water can become excessively dry, and with continued use, it can lead to weakened hair strands and follicles. Adding a very simple shower filter to your shower head is incredibly helpful. I used one when I was living in Hawaii, and it made such a huge difference on my hair. I recently asked a question in my hair group of how often are you cleaning your sponge rollers and foam rollers? And I have to say, I was astonished by the answer. Most people just said that it never occurred to them that they needed to wash their foam and sponge rollers. But it's really important to keep your foam rollers, your pillow rollers, your sponge rollers, in addition to your brushes and your combs, clean for the best scalp and hair health. For your hairbrushes and combs, you should be cleaning out the hair at least a couple of times a week. If you happen to have a hair receiver and you want to collect the hair for making a hair rat, you can set that aside. But you should really be doing a thorough cleaning of all of your brushes and combs about once a month or so. Just soak them in some warm water, and you can use a gentle shampoo like a baby shampoo. I like to use Castile soap, and I just lay them in a bath of warm water, let them soak for a little bit, and then I use a nail brush to get in there and really break up the gunk and the dirt and the oil and get them thoroughly clean. And then you just lay them flat to dry. Your foam and pillow rollers can also benefit from a little bath. Dirt and product and dust can really accumulate on those foam rollers and the pillow rollers, and then we're depositing that right back on the hair when we use them, and we do not want that. For foam and sponge rollers, you just remove the plastic bits, make sure you're cleaning off all of the hair on the sponge rollers, and just dunk everything into a warm bath, again with gentle shampoo, baby shampoo, or Castile soap. The sponge rollers, the sponge parts can lay in there for quite a while. For the plastic bits, I just kind of leave them in about, 5 or 10 minutes, take them out. I use my nail brush to kind of clean off any of the gunk that's on there, let them sit and dry. And for the sponge rollers, I do take some time to get in there with my hands and really kind of break everything up with the Castile soap. And it also helps to kind of reform the rollers. Every once in a while, they'll start to squish down because, again, we've got product and dirt and all that gunk in there. So it really helps to kind of fluff them up a little bit. So just go through with your hands and just kind of move them around a little bit, get all of the gunk off, and make sure that you squeeze all of the water out and then just lay them out flat to dry. They'll usually dry overnight. If your hair is looking a little bit lifeless, or if maybe you're having some scalp issues, you might want to try an apple cider vinegar rinse. It's a very simple solution. It's just about 10 ounces of water and 2 to 4 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. I like to put it into a squeeze bottle, makes it easier to apply. After washing and conditioning your hair, you're going to pour the solution on your scalp and kind of let it run through your hair. And you just leave it on for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then you just rinse it out. You don't wash your hair again. That's the final step after you've already washed and conditioned your hair. And just make sure that you rinse it out with cool water. Your hair is not going to smell like apple cider vinegar. The scent does dissipate very quickly. But apple cider vinegar is going to help to restore the pH of your scalp. It's going to help to remove some product buildup, so it's going to help to cleanse the scalp and the hair. It helps to reduce frizz. It really closes the cuticle. It improves luster. You'll definitely notice a bit of shine on your hair, and it really helps to soften the hair. So if you are noticing that your hair is feeling a little, less than bouncy, try using an apple cider vinegar rinse.
For normal daily care, your hair should be methodically combed and brushed.
Brushing your hair regularly is actually very beneficial to your scalp and your hair. I know we've all heard the, 100 strokes before you go to bed. If you can make it through that, fine. But even just a simple, regular quick brush out before you go to bed, it's going to help to clear off any dust or pollen or dirt that has accumulated on your hair. It also helps to distribute some of the oils from your scalp down your hair to help moisturize it and keep it hydrated. If you're detangling your hair or you're brushing out any sort of back combing, just take very small sections at a time and start from the bottom and work your way up with the brush. You don't want to pull out any of your any tangles or any kind of back combing. You just want to be very gentle with your hair, but definitely want to make sure that you're combing out any back combing before you go to sleep at night, because otherwise it's going to mat up and it's really going to be very difficult to get out the next day. Okay, so we know that the wet set is really the foundation for just about every vintage hairstyle, whether that's a pin curl set or a foam roller, sponge roller, or pillow roller set. If you can master the wet set, you are so much better equipped to tackle pretty much any vintage hairstyle that you want. Having a good strong set allows you to have the curls, volume, and structure for achieving many vintage hairstyles. For most of us, with care, our wet sets can last a week or sometimes longer. And if you routinely set your hair, you'll find that the process becomes faster and easier, and the outcome will be much more consistent for you. Our hair has a type of tension memory, and so with regular setting, it is actually going to easily adapt to the curl or the direction that you are trying to put it into. So stick with it. I know that it can be a daunting task at first. It is a lot of time in the beginning, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes and the easier your hair will take to it. And I promise you, you will be rewarded. All right, so let's get into the science behind why and how a wet set actually works to create curls. Our hair is made up of three main types of bonds. There's hydrogen bonds, salt bonds, and disulfide bonds. Today, we are only going to be talking about the hydrogen bonds. These bonds are what is responsible primarily for our hair structure and shape. They're responsible for up to 30% of the hair strength and 50% of the hair's elasticity. So in order to change the shape or the structure of your hair, these hydrogen bonds need to be broken down and then reformed. And these bonds can only be broken with water or excessive heat on the hair. So when your hair is fully saturated, when you're shampooing and conditioning your hair, you are breaking those bonds. This is a naturally occurring process that happens every time our hair gets wet. The water molecules get into the hair cuticle and start to break those preset hydrogen bonds. And then when the hair dries, it forms new bonds. So if you've wet your hair and you've just let it dry naturally on its own without any intervention from you, it's going to reform the hydrogen bonds in their natural state. So if you have straight hair, those hydrogen bonds are going to remain straight with your hair. If you have curly hair, those hydrogen bonds are going to reform in your natural coil or curl. However, a wet set interrupts this, and it is a great example of hydrogen bond manipulation. With a true wet set, when you have wet your hair and you stretch the hair around a roller or you're making it into a pin curl, you've now molded it into a different form than its natural state. As the hair dries on the roller or in the pin curl, hydrogen rebonding occurs, and it's now going to form a new shape because we have rolled it into the pin curl or onto the roller. And once it's dried and those bonds have now reconnected, you now have a curl. If done properly, this new shape will remain pretty much intact until it gets wet again. In order to manipulate these bonds, your hair does need to be wet. Spritzing dry hair with setting lotion or even just water doesn't provide enough moisture to penetrate the hair fibers to get in there and break those bonds to begin with. You really need your hair to be wet for the strongest set possible. So now that we know a little bit of science behind how all of this works, you can see how a damp set or a mostly dry set isn't going to give you the strongest curl. Those bonds aren't going to be able to be broken and reformed properly to give you the nice full curl that you're looking for. The wet set process is especially important to those that have really curl resistant hair, very straight hair, or for people like myself who have naturally curly hair and we need to manipulate our curl pattern. So both of these hair types benefit greatly from breaking down those bonds and reforming them and manipulating them into the curl that we're actually looking for. As far as drying time goes for a wet set, everybody is different. It really depends on the texture of your hair, how long your hair is, how much hair you put in the rollers. So just for reference, I have naturally curly hair. It's very thick and I have a lot of it. And when I do my wet set, it takes about 24 hours to dry completely. If it's really humid out, it may take a little bit longer, but for the most part, it takes 24 hours. You can always get yourself a bonnet dryer. They can be very helpful for just speeding things up and giving your hair that extra boost to make sure that everything is completely dry before you take your rollers out. I generally will sit under my bonnet dryer the day after I've done my set, just while I'm putting on my makeup for 15-20 minutes or so, just to absolutely make sure that everything is dry before I take my rollers out. And here are a few more just general setting tips when you're setting your hair in rollers. Avoid the fish hooks. We want to make sure that the ends of our hair are completely tucked into the pin curl or to the sponge roller while we're rolling it up. If the ends of the hair kind of stick out a little bit, it's going to dry in that position and it's going to create this horrible look we just call it fish hooks because that's exactly what it looks like. And they're going to go in the opposite direction. They're going to just look really awful and they're really hard to fix. So just make sure that your ends are completely tucked in when you're rolling. You don't want to roll your hair too tightly around the roller. The size roller that you've chosen is going to be the diameter of the curl that you're going to get. So if you roll your hair too tightly around that center piece, it's going to make it a much smaller diameter than the actual roller itself. So you just want to gently place your hair over that. You can kind of hold it down with your finger while you roll it up to your scalp. If you're concerned with the plastic part of the foam rollers creating a dent in your hair, I have a really quick fix for that. Once you get the roller all the way up to the scalp, you're going to go ahead and secure it like you normally would. But instead of keeping the bar there, you're going to flip it around till it's underneath. And then using a pin curl clip or even a bobby pin, just clamp that bar right underneath so it doesn't flop around. That way you have this nice smooth top and no more dent. Now I generally only do this on the rollers that are going to be seen just on the very top because that's really where the dent happens the most and that's where it's most noticeable. But when I'm doing my front fringe, I actually use that dent to help create my wave. And because I roll all of my hair off to the side, and having that dent there actually helps to create the wave. And then to create this little bit of a lifted dent, I use a hairnet. When I'm finished with my rollers, I put on a hairnet, and the edge of the hairnet sits right here. And it actually helps to create this wave and dent in my fringe. So you can try that and see if that works. You can create this with pin curls as well, but I found this is much easier for me. So utilize some of the things that you already have to to create those styles. And speaking of hairnets, putting a hairnet on after you've put in your rollers is really going to help keep everything nice and secure. I use a bob size hairnet. It's a smaller size, so it really keeps everything nice and taut in there. And then it allows for airflow, so it can easily dry overnight, and it allows the air to get through. Okay, well, those are my tips and tricks for the best vintage hairstyling and keeping your hair and scalp nice and happy and healthy. I hope this was helpful for you, and if you have any questions at all, please leave comments down below. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that I can about vintage hairstyling, or if you have extra tips that you want to share with anybody, we'd love to hear that as well. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again very soon. Bye.